Yo, g'day guys from down under. I'm a little bit late. I was running around. I had to get my beer ready because, hey, I can't not have a drink with you guys. So I hope you are going to crack a stubby with me. I was back on the Corona today. I was going to get a different beer today, but I just ran out of time. So I'm going to stick with the Corona today, and I might try a different one next week. I'm just going to have a little introduction with you guys, so just say hi to everyone. So if you're not interested in that, just skip to where you see the A7iii Images logo a little bit later, and then we'll start the actual show from there, because I've got some really interesting things to show you today, actually. But anyway, cheers, everyone. Nectar of the gods. So let's go over to see who's in here. We got the Panda photographer, still up from last night. I watched his video up late last night. He was still out shooting after 12 o'clock, so bit of a legend there, the Panda. What else have we got? Raphael's in here, just up to the channel. Thanks so much for joining us, mate. People are saying, where were you? Like I said, I was a bit late this morning. What else have we? Who else have we got? Casper's in here, so good to see you, Casper, as well. Alex is also here. David Mossman's here. Robert's here as well. Dreamer's here. So there's a few now starting to log on. So we've got Stacks just now logging on. So please say hi, guys, if you are actually popping in on the chat, because I'd love to see who's actually here. Just make sure too that if you do want my attention for the question part later on, make sure that you put the @David Osler, because that way I'll know that the question's directed at me. I will try and go through all of them, but it highlights it if they're actually listed like that. Cody said, hello from Cleveland, Ohio. I lived in Melbourne for 2 years. I miss it. Yeah, I love Melbourne, Cody. I really think it's one of the best cities in the world. It's actually been voted the most livable city now, I think, for 3 or 4 years in a row. Most livable city in the world. It really is beautiful. The Panda photographer said, David is going to sponsor me. Mike said, hi there, everyone. Kevin's here as well. David Mossman's here. Have a Tank 7 from KC and the NCAA tournament. Not sure what that means. Photo Meek's here as well. G'day, mate. How you going? Ben's here as well. So we've got Stacks now starting to pop in. So I've got a couple of things I wanted to sort of show you. I'm going to just show you a couple of bits of new gear that I'm going to look at and review over the coming next couple of weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks or so. I'm still in the middle of wedding season, so I am doing a wedding this weekend as well. But I thought I'd, show you a couple of things that I'm thinking about adding into my weddings and things like that. And one thing particularly I'm wanting to review, because I wanted to have something for people that can't afford the higher end gear, and this might perfectly fit your needs. So what else? Who else have we got? Mike's here as well, Dreamer's here as well, and Ghoul's here. So I'm going to cross over to the logo anyway, so people can just skip to that point if they want to. So bear with me a second and we'll start the show. G'day everyone, I'm just wiping my mouth. I've just had a sip of the Corona. So please, if you are joining us, crack a stubby with me. That's what we say in Australia, crack a stubby. I'd love you to all have a drink with me. I know it's, it's reasonably late for you guys in the US and Europe, so you definitely can drink. For me, it's 1:40 p.m. in the afternoon, but, you know, so what? I own my own business, so I can just tell myself off. So I'm going to have one, or I might even have two. I don't know. But anyway, let's get on to some interesting things that I'm going to share with you guys this week. I've got another wedding coming up this week, which I'm really looking forward to. It's meant to rain on Sunday, though, so I hope it doesn't. We haven't had rain, basically, for 2 months here. So we do need the rain, but I'm just hoping it's not too heavy for the bride and groom on the weekend. It's an outdoor wedding, so hopefully it doesn't bucket down. If it does, we're going to have to shoot a different way, and we'll probably have, Kerry will probably hold the umbrella over me and stuff like that to sort of keep the gear a little bit dry if we can with the flashes and stuff like that, but it should be interesting if it does actually rain. They often say it's going to rain and then it doesn't, or we get a light shower. Now, before we actually start today, because I've got a stack of stuff that I wanted to show you, I did want to still promote the website. So please, if you can, join us at this group, the photography and videography website that I've set up for you guys. It's not about me, this website. It's for you to promote your business. you know, and promote your Instagram feeds, share your videos that you create, share your work. We have weekly competitions where the winner gets put into the header up here. I'm doing weekly different competitions. I've got a really good one that I've got planned for next week that Ben suggested, so I'm going to do that. But, you know, we just have people posting work all over the place. I also put in when I'm going to be in live, and, you know, we're getting some really good work shared on here now. So please join us, because I usually do comment. I always comment on it, actually. And it's starting to become a really interesting site. It's very positive. There's no negativity on there. The only limit that I put on it is you can only share 3 images per day, and you just can't go live on it. Apart from that, you can, like I said, promote your Instagram, do whatever else you like. So please join us there, because it's just great. It's just becoming a great place where we can all show off our work and promote your businesses. So let's talk about some other things though first, before I get on to the actual rumours sites and talk about all new gear and stuff like that. I wanted to bring up a couple of bits of new gear that I've got this week. I bought 2 of these. I don't know whether anyone is getting into these yet. I do actually have the H1s that I use, and I'm also broadcasting here through the H6 that I actually use. So that's what the boom mic's connected to that's above me, is actually to the H6. So I do really like the Zoom equipment. But I decided to buy this. There are other ones out there, but I was talking to Michael actually about it, and he was saying that he uses a different type of brand. But I thought that I'd end up going for this one, because I can attach all of the Zoom attachments to this, and it does seem like it's a reasonable size. And like I said, I will review it for you all. But you know, if you look at the actual size, it is really quite nice and small. It does come with a belt clip on the back, so I will be able to sort of stick this onto my belt or onto the groom's belt and things like that. I do often go wireless, and I use the Rode equipment for doing that, their wireless gear. So I do use those, but I thought this is a great way of doing something where I don't have to rely on wireless. So I've bought a couple of these. So I'll let you know how they go. But I do like the form factor. It is bigger than the other unit. I forgot what the other unit was. Someone might be able to help me actually in the chat. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, I might be able to come up with it. I can't remember what it was. But there was another small unit that was fairly similar to this. It was a bit smaller, and it also records a backup. This doesn't do the backup, but from what I've seen in the reviews, this has a much better screen on here. And it's a little bit easier to use and things like that, so that's sort of important for me. I did buy the lapel one, so it does come with a lapel mic, so you can attach the mic to this as well, which will be nice. It just uses a couple of AA batteries, I think. But I'll let you know when I start to use it. No, it wasn't the Zoom, it was a different brand. But I think this will really fit what I actually want to do. But like I said, I will show this when I review it. I'll give it a review and sort of talk about that. So I've bought 2 of these. It also has a headphone socket, obviously, as well as your input socket. So, you know, I think it's going to be really nice to actually use. But like I said, I'll let you know how it goes when I actually start to use it. The other thing that I've got is really interesting, because what I did was I got this little unit because I do use Fosicam a lot, and the interesting thing is that I've paid for a number of their devices. There's a gimbal that I've actually used, which I really like, and I'm always buying gimbals, but there's a gimbal that I bought from them that I really like, and I also really like using their slider, which you've seen if you've looked at the review that I did of that. It's really cheap but really well made. Now, I saw this the other day, and I contacted them, and basically I've organised for them to send me this little unit out. So I haven't paid for this, so they're actually sending me this, because it's probably not something that I would use, but I thought this might be a fantastic device if you can't afford to buy a motorised gimbal, or you just want to travel without having to worry about things like, you know, charging batteries and things like that. So I probably could use it in that respect if I was travelling and things like that. But it's $78.99 US, and I'll show you what it actually looks like, because it looks really cool. But like I said, I haven't used this yet. So this is the device, and like I said, I will review it, so I'll use it probably in a couple of test shots. I might even try and use it in a bit of a wedding or something just to see how it goes. But it looks like it's a Manfrotto unit, or the mounting plates Manfrotto, but you can probably fit adapters onto it. But this is basically what the unit looks like. So it's complete metal. Now, I used to use these when I had a normal gimbal like this a while ago. I can't remember the name brand of what it actually was, but basically what you'll do is these are the actual weights that come onto the bottom. Then you'll mount the camera on top, so there's no motor that's actually required to actually run this. So I'm really interested to see what type of result it gives. It feels like it's really well made, like really well made. It's, you know, it's all metal. I can't believe they can do this for $78, nearly $79 US. Like it's incredible, really, when you think about it. So I'm not even sure how to use it yet. So I've got to learn how to use it, and then I'll do a review of it. But like I said, I'm never going to lie to you guys. I haven't bought this, so they sent this to me. So I'll be able to give you a review, but I'm still going to tell you the truth of if I think I like it or not. But like I said, it's probably not something I would be using in the weddings, because I use their the actual gimbal that I bought from them, the electronic one, so I'd probably use that. But like I said, this could be a great thing if you wanted to take it for travel, or if you just can't afford, and there are people that can't afford that. If you can't afford to pay for a full-on electronic gimbal, well then this is only $78.99 that you could use. So I'll show you what the footage comes out like anyway. Like I said, I did used to use manual gimbals before, so I just thought I'd show you that because it's a really interesting unit. I still can't believe they did that for that price though. It looks like it's carbon fibre in the middle. Like I said though, they sent me this, so I'll have to let you know once I review it to see what it's actually like. So there's a couple of things there that I'm going to review over the coming weeks. And like I said, the other products that I've had from Fosicam I've purchased myself, and I've really liked them. So, and obviously they saw the reviews I did, so they've sent me out this gimbal. There was another one they wanted me to have a look at too, which was for the, what was it? It was a gimbal for, this is an electronic gimbal for the RX100 Mark V. But it may be able to be used with the A6500, so I may still get to look at that too. But anyway, so it's interesting. But like I said to you guys, always going to tell you the truth. Like I said, that for me, I probably wouldn't use that myself, but definitely if you can't afford a full-on gimbal, this could be an option for you to use it. But wait and see how it is when I do some sample footage for you, and just see if you think it's worthwhile. Anyway, let's go up to news, because I'm going to go up to that with you. Now, just before we do that, let me just put my watch on silent, because I always forget. Otherwise, it'll be driving us both nuts as we go through this talk, and I better put my phone on silent. Okay, so I've got a number of things that I want to go through with you today with news and stuff like that. Some great articles, actually. So we're going to go through those. If you have any questions, please leave those in the question box, and I will come back at the end to have some time for questions with you all. And if you obviously aren't able to do that, leave the questions down below if you're watching this later on, because you don't have that ability to join in with the live chat. Please also, if you can, give me a thumbs up. I'd love more people on board. But anyway, let's get started. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss with you today was this, because it's just really showing, you know, how well Sony is starting to perform. Now remember, if you're coming from a non-Sony background, these discussions that we have, particularly for the live show we do every day at this time, this week, is always going to be Sony-centric. So you do have to understand that it is sort of coming from the Sony side of things. But the photography show, which was 17th to 20th of March, this is really interesting, because basically what they're saying in here is that Sony has sold more cameras on day one of the Photography 2018 show than during the whole of the show last year. Retailers have told us, in fact, we've heard rumoured figures that the Sony sold $200,000 worth of gear on day one of the show, largely driven by the keen interest in the Sony A7 III. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger if I can. Oh, it doesn't matter. It'll be all right. So, yeah, so that's really interesting. What do you think about that? He's saying that one retailer told us that business had sold more Sony equipment on day one than the whole of the photography show in 2018 than I did in the whole entire show, while other retailers confirmed to us Sony gear is flying off the shelves. Another retailer confirmed for us that major camera manufacturer Sony was dominating the sales in the show so far. I have no doubt that the Sony A7 III would become a hot seller in terms of performance, price balance. This is the best Sony camera in years. And this was what I was discussing with you a little while ago about this as well, that I think the Sony A7 III is going to be by far the best-selling camera for the whole year. Clearly, if you look online, the amount of interest that this camera is generating is really strong, like really strong. And I've noticed so many people are selling their cameras to move over. Cheers. Not only, though, are Sony users, say, selling their A6500 and A6300s to move up, and I've seen that is quite a lot. If you look online at the sites selling, there's a hell of a lot of those cameras now being sold, and that really is because they want to move up to the A7 III. And I've discussed this in other discussions that I wouldn't be buying the A6500 at the moment now. I think if I was in the marketplace to be coming into this, I'd be buying the A7 III. I wouldn't be buying the A6500 or the A6300 unless you particularly want to run that on a gimbal, which is why I'll keep mine. Or you want the Play Memory apps, obviously. If you want to keep the Play Memory apps, you still need that feature. So that's probably one reason why I won't sell those cameras. But I wouldn't be buying it now. I'd be getting the A7 III. For that price that it is, it's not that much more than buying an A6500, and to be honest, I'd be saving up that bit extra because you're getting a much, much better camera. And you can see that with people that are selling their gear. So not only are Sony users selling it, but the amount of Canon users particularly that I'm seeing are upgrading and selling their Canon gear and switching over is incredibly high. And that's why I think that you're looking at with these shows that so many people are selling their gear and buying this camera. So I think this is really going to be a hot seller. Like I said, I think it's probably going to be in the stores next week here sometime. No doubt I'm going to get a call from the camera shop to come in and have a look at it. So I probably will go in and have a look at it because they usually do. I buy so much gear that they'll often save one for me. And I may buy it. I don't know. I'll have to see what I'm like when I touch it. But anyway, so it probably is going to be released here next week, I think, or the week after. So I think we're going to get it a fraction earlier than the US. So anyway, I'll know more about that sort of next week or whenever. And like I said, I'll give it a full detail review in real world usage, and I'll post that for you all anyway and let you know what I think about it. But what do you think about that? I mean, it is obviously flying off the shelves. I think they're probably going to sell as many of these as they can make for a while. So anyway, let me know what you think about that. Now, the second, so that was the photography show. Now, the second story that I wanted to sort of talk to you was about that Dpreview have just done their studio scene. Now, that's where they do the camera. Let me just open this and see if it'll open. They do a full studio shoot with the camera, and they do things like, I'm just seeing if we can get the actual scene up in here. Let me have a look. I'll just see if I can get it for you. Because the studio, here we go. Now the studio scene is a complete setup that they do with every camera and sensor, and they do all this type of shot shooting for highlight, shadows, tone, gradation, sharpness. They do text editing, sharpness, things like that, which is interesting. But this is the part that interests me down the bottom, because what they're saying is here, they say here that we'll be writing up our analysis of the A7 III's image quality and any potential problems in the coming days once we've done a little more testing and real-world shooting. But this is the interesting part that down here it says, in the meantime, our studio scene suggests that if the A7 III has an anti-aliasing filter, it's extremely weak, designed to only filter excessively high frequency detail in the horizontal axis. So it'll be interesting to see what effect this has in real world reviews. So in other words, what they're saying is that yes, might have, and I think it does have an anti-aliasing filter, but they are saying that it is incredibly weak, and that's why probably you're seeing that it's had no issues that have been reported so far. Let me know what you think about that one, though, because it does seem like it's a very weak filter. So again, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. And remember, I think most 24 megapixel cameras have that filter in them. And I've not had any problems with the A9 or any of the other cameras that I've had that with. So they just say it affects sharpness a little bit. But like I said, I haven't seen any issues with that camera being reviewed anywhere about sharpness. So that's an interesting review there. The next one, I watched this the other day. It was interesting because Max Yurev has done a detailed analysis now between the A7S III and the A7 III and the A7S II. Basically, if you watch it, what he basically says is that, and the conclusion is that Sony has to announce the A7S III soon because the A7 III mostly dethrones the current A7S II. So in other words, if you're in the marketplace for this type of camera, you really would be buying the A7 III now. And when you look at it, the only time the A7S II came out on top was when you were dealing with, was with really high ISO files. Apart from that, the A7 III was much better. Much better. You know, the 4K, I think, looked better from what I've seen. The ISO up to usable limits was basically just as good. The focus is a game changer in the fact of how that works as compared to the A7S II. So there was multiple features in it that, you know, I think, boy, if you were in that marketplace at the moment, I'd be buying the A7 III over the A7S II. I wouldn't be buying the A7S II, that's for sure. I'd be getting the A7 III, or you'd be waiting. The problem is that looking at, and I'll bring something up in a minute because it's interesting when he's talking about this. I don't think the A7S III is going to come out in a while, and I'll mention that in a minute. It may be announced in September in Photokina, but even if it's announced then, that doesn't mean it will come out then. It's probably going to be announced in September, and then it may come out in December or October, or even possibly next year. So they're interesting things that you've got to consider. Do you wait basically possibly 12 months before they bring this out? Or do you just jump in and say the A7 III is going to be good enough? And from what I've seen, that camera certainly is good enough to be shooting video with, definitely. Unless you're shooting in extreme, like darkly lit caves or, you know, really ridiculously lit reception halls, the A7 III is going to be way more than what you'll ever need. So let me know in the comments what you think about that as well, because I'd be curious to know what you think about that. But you can also watch Max's video. It's really good to watch it. Max does test in detail. So, you know, like I said, check that out. This also came out this morning. Now, I wasn't really going to discuss this too much because it's just crazy rumors of A7 III that have just been announced. They're saying 15 megapixel organic sensor. And these are things that even Sony Alpha rumors are saying that they don't believe that this may not be true. But it's saying 132 to 1 million ISO or something like that, you know. But basically, the thing that I wanted to discuss with you here was that it says Sony has yet not registered any new camera code in Asia. It would mean the A7S III might not be announced soon. Expect some A7 III body improvements and 4K 60p video recording. So in other words, there's not even any camera codes announced at the moment that might suggest that the A7 III is going to be released imminent. That's why I think it's probably going to be much later. Now, remember too that the A7 III is going to come out in April for you guys in the US, the middle of April. So I can't see it being announced in NAB because that would take away everything about that camera just being released at that date. So I don't think that could be announced at that point. So I think, like I said, at the moment it looks like the earliest that you'd see this would be Photokina. And I think, pretty sure that's September. And looking at that, that seems to be like it's going to be the case. So, you know, I think you're going to have to make a decision on which way you want to go. Like, if you are in the marketplace for a new video camera, do you say, well, look, I'm going to wait for the A7S III announcement, wherever that may be? Or do you just say, well, looking at the results that we're getting from the A7 III, do I just jump into the A7 III and that's going to be good enough for the meantime until I may jump up to the A7S III that will come out late this year or early next year. So it is a decision that you're going to have to make. And probably the way I would be thinking is that if I was in the marketplace to do it, I would probably just jump in now and get the A7 III. But don't blame me if they announce an A7S III sooner. You just never know. That's a problem. But I'm always the type really that says if you can use that camera now and you'll get a few months use out of it and you're making money from it, what does it matter? I mean, really, you've got to look at it like that. And so I probably would be thinking I'm going to jump the gun now and get the A7 III and be using that camera. And like I said, I haven't used it yet, but if it's anything like my A9, which honestly, the video from that is astounding. It's stunning. If it's anything like what that is, and that's a 6K sensor downsample to your 4K, it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. The only thing really that this will be lacking is a 4K 60p probably, which the A7S III will more than likely have. But like I said, we don't know yet when that's going to be released. So I thought that was a really interesting comment that was written there. Cheers, everyone. So next story, first real test of the Sigma 135 and the 35 FE lens. Now this one is really interesting because I've done a couple of talks about how I think the Sigma lenses are going to be really nice on the Sony system. And I've also talked about how I do believe they're a step up from Samyang and other lenses like that. They're definitely made better, and I do believe that they're better glass. You pay more, yes, but in the end, I think that's what you pay for. Now, do you have that horrible flange in the beginning? Yes, you do, but it's no different than if you're using the MC11 adapter. The benefit here is that you're getting that for no cost. Therefore, that you're not having to put in buy different adapters if you're using multiple lenses or different camera bodies. You can just plug the camera straight in. But they did promise with this camera that they were going to have better focus. And that was the interesting thing about this, because this person here, Chris Chu, who sent this in, this is the interesting part, because what he's said is that, I'll put here, is the only person so far to get one of these native FE lenses, and what he writes sounds really promising. He said that got the FE 135 1.8 art lens, AF performance is as good as native lenses. IAF in burst shooting, much better than the 85 GM. So that's a really interesting statement. So he's obviously got this lens and he's tested it, and he's saying that the focus and the IAF is much better than using the 85 GM. He also said that he's received the ART 35 1.4, and he says that it's much sharper than the Zeiss 35 1.4, but the bokeh is not as smooth. AF performance and size weight are the same level. Now, this points to the fact that I was saying to you that I've used a couple of these lenses before. I've used the Sigma 85 1.4, which I loved when I had my Nikon camera, and I also used the 35 1.4, and I adored that as well. The Sigma art lenses are incredibly sharp. They are really sharp. They're beautiful lenses to use. They feel really nice to use as well. They're made really well. They are high-end glass. And they said, Sigma promised, they said in that these lenses would work better than what it is using the adapter, the MC11. And clearly, if you look at that discussion there, he's saying that exact same thing, that it is focusing as fast as what the native FE lenses are focusing. And he's actually saying that it was quicker in IAF and burst shooting than the 85G Master. So they're really interesting statements that are coming out from him, and he's the only one that's tested it so far. So, I mean, all we can do is read what he said. Now, we'll all have to wait, obviously, until these are released. But it is very promising signs, and it's really promising signs for Sony. If you're a Sony user and you can't afford GM lenses, this could be a real plus. And like I said, there's a couple of lenses that really interest me. The macro does. The 70mm macro interests me. And also the 105 I'm getting more and more interested in that the more I read about it, because it looks like it's stunning, incredibly heavy, and it's not something that I would use all the time, but it might be something that I would use occasionally for a special portrait session that I want to do, and where I really want to shoot at that 1.4 at 105, blow out the background completely, and be shooting at 105. The 135 also interests me as well, because I do love that focal length for portraiture. It probably is the ultimate focal length for doing portraiture, and if you're dealing with having that at 1.8, you know, it's going to be a stunning lens to use. But let me know in the chat, because I'll come back to that with you in the live chat in a few minutes, and we'll go through all of these together and we'll have a discussion about it, because it's really interesting to see you know, what's happening. And remember, I said to you too that the more things that happens like this, it's just better for Sony. Now that Samyang's involved with Sony, now that Sigma are involved with Sony FE mount, Tamron, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, all these other lenses now are coming on board. It's just a win-win situation for us all that are using Sony. So I'm just so enthusiastic about it all. The next story that I wanted to bring up to you is the official pricing for the Tamron 28-70 has been announced. And it's, I think it's 5,300 yen, so that works out to 840 USA, which is really cheap if you're dealing for looking at that lens when they're saying that that is going to be the same quality as the GM lenses. Now remember, I haven't seen this lens yet. There's no real reviews out there that you can view it, but if it's true what they're saying about that being the same quality as the GM Master lenses, well, that could be a good lens if you like that focal length. That focal length is not really a focal length that I'm interested in personally. I've got the 24-70. It's the f4 version though. I just don't like using it that much. I'm just being honest with you. I prefer to use just the 35 Sony lens and the 85 focal length at the moment. They're the two lenses that I mostly use. The only real zoom that I'm really tending to use at the moment is the 70-200 f4. So I do have that. Oh, and I use the 16-35 too if I need to go wide. But so I do have zooms, but I don't use them as much as I used to. And I really, in some ways, would just love to go just everything prime. But that may be something that I do down the track. But if you are into that, it seems to be like it's going to be a really nice lens. It may also bring down the price of the GM lenses, because eventually competition, like I said, brings everything down. So this could be a really good thing. Don't forget, you're also going to see zoom lenses from Sigma coming out soon as well. So you'll also see that coming along soon as well. The last thing I wanted to sort of talk about, which is not Sony related, was the Phantom. This is the first review that I've seen of the new Phantom that's coming out. Now this is interesting because they're saying the DJI Phantom leak hints at an interchangeable lens camera system. It's a 1-inch sensor looking at this image here, and it's an interchangeable lens. So wow, if you're thinking about waiting for a new drone, this really could be really interesting. I've got the Phantom 4 and I've also got the Maverick as well. But this could also be one that I would think about getting if it does have a really nice interchangeable lens system. It may be something that I think about looking at too. They're just saying this is going to be announced probably later this year in October, I think. But anyway, I'll put all these links in the description down below so that we can go through these together. But geez, things are changing so fast, you know. It's just amazing how much stuff is changing. Let's now go to questions, because I'm going to bring up all the questions and we'll go through these together. So if you have got a question, guys, please say @DavidOsler, and we'll go through all the questions together. It can be about anything at all. Panda Photographer said, I told David to stop drinking those beers. The Panda Photographer said, breaking news, David is fashionably late. Sorry, everyone, for the delay. He has to find a beer first. Oh, I love it. So let's scroll down to where people are asking questions. So Dreamer said, I got my 16 to 35 2.8 GM and the 85 1.4 GM, waiting for the body. So you're getting the A7 III Dreamer. That'll be a lovely combination once you get that. Yeah, like I said, I think here in Australia they're announced for, well, they said on the Sony website at the end of the month, but I heard yesterday that they're already in the warehouses here, and there's talk that they're going to be released next week. So wait with bated breath. Photography's here as well. Devonport, lovely Tasmania. Girls here from Chicago. David's just saying hi as well. David, I can only afford the body, haha, the A7 series. Which one, Raphael? Just let us know. Are you just saying the A7 III or just the A7 II? David's saying hello. Casper said, David, Sigma 135, way too heavy for you. Yeah, well, look, and I've said that. It is really heavy. That's not going to be a lens that I would use on the camera all the time. It probably would be a lens that I would get out occasionally, just like that 105 would be a lens that I'd get out occasionally, but it certainly wouldn't be, I wouldn't be taking my batis off to use that all the time. But the 135 is a beautiful focal length if you want to shoot, you know, that beautiful look with a model and things like that and have the gorgeous out of focus background. So it would be a specialized lens for me. But yeah. Oh, Robert's drinking scotch. Raphael said, David, I just bought A-mount 35mm Samyang Sign lens. Lovely. People are saying they sent things to join the group. Yes, please join our photography and videography group. Yeah, that's what I had. I had the Glidecam 2000. That's the one I was trying to remember, the Panda Photographer. That's what mine was. So this is similar to that in a way, but it's very small. So it's for like small mirrorless cameras. So it's going to be interesting to see what it's like when I review it. So yeah, that was 3 kilogram. Yeah, this holds up to, I think, a kilogram, I think. But I'll have to look at it when I think it will, Raphael, I think it was, let me just go back to that website and I'll tell you how heavy that can go. It's only designed for the smaller cameras though. Let me just come back to here. It does 1.1 to 6 point, it'll be 1.1 kilograms, I think. 0.5 to 3 kilogram, I'm not sure. It's all down here. Let me bring this down for you so you can have a look. So this is what it's saying in the website. There's 0.5 to 3 kilogram. It's made by aviation grade carbon fiber, which is lighter than the aluminium alloy. Applicable to mirrorless digital SLR, DV suitable for weddings, microfilm scenery and scenery photography. High grade material. Like I said, it's really quite interesting if you look at it though, because it is really nicely made. I can't believe they do this for that price. I mean, I'll come back so you can see the size of it. So that's the actual size. And like I said, these little weights all screw off depending on what type of camera you want to do. So they have multiple bits that screw off if you look at it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it actually goes. So I'm dying to give it a go just to see. Like I said, it could be a great thing if you want to just take something for travel and you're not worried about running out of batteries and stuff like that. It says in here that in the standard package, like I said, you have all these different weights that you can move. It shows the weights down there that you can use, which is 135, 45, and 35 kilograms. It's got the Manfrotto plate, obviously. But $80, I mean... I don't know how they do it, really, to be honest. But like I said, I haven't paid for this. They've sent me this, so I haven't even used this yet. So I don't know what it's going to be like until I try it. But I've certainly paid for the other gear that they sent me. And like I said, I think they were happy with the reviews that I did on those. So they've just sent me this. But I'll let you know how it goes when I actually use it. But it seems like it's a really interesting little product. So let's go back to this. Yeah, more likely 3 kilograms. Yeah, so it is 3 kilograms. Good backup to my Crane V2. Yeah, I know it is. I mean, like I said, if you had issues with your motorized gimbals, this is where this could be used. But to be honest, when they contacted me about this, I really thought I'd love to review this for people that couldn't afford to use a motorized gimbal, because there are a lot of people out there that can't afford to use that. And I thought, wow, this could be a great product. I'm very selective. I get an awful lot of people asking me all the time to review gear for them, and I'm very selective on what I'll ever do. Like I said, 99.9% of the things that I've ever been sent, I've used, I've paid for. So they're actually out of my own money, and it's what I'd actually use. When they contacted me about this, I thought, why not? I had a discussion with Kerry about it, and I thought, why not? Because it seems to be a great product that people could use this if you haven't got the money to pay a motorized. Plus, as you say there, it would be a great backup to something like a Crane 2 or all of my other gimbals that I've got too. In case if something ever happened, it might be a great backup. So I'll let you know how it works anyway when I use it. But yeah, I mean, I'll let you know. What else have we got? Peter's just saying g'day. Jeffrey's saying g'day. What else have we got? Oh, Altric saying cheers. I'm moving over from Fuji. Oh, Rob, so what are you selling? Let us know what you're selling, because I'd be really curious to know what camera you're selling. I keep moving over out of the... What camera you're selling, what Fuji ones are you selling, and which one are you moving into for Sony? Is it the A7 III? Raphael said, I'll keep my A7R II. I'm going to keep mine too. I'm not selling my A7R II, particularly because it's got the Play Memories hacks on it, and I've got the no time limit hack on that, which I use all the time. Every time you say Sony drink. Sony, I'll run out of drink though. Peter said, I called this after the A6 300 was announced. Honestly, I said A7 III will have a little of everything and be the best camera when it's released. Yeah, I know. Like I said to you, it's a hard decision now to decide if you keep the A6 500. I still think the A6 500 is the best camera out there that you can stick on a gimbal. I love putting that on a gimbal. Because it's so small and light. And remember, I'm doing fusion, which means I'm carrying a camera and something else at the same time. So I'm doing that all the time. So being able to have as light as possible on a gimbal is a really important thing. So I still will probably use that, and I'm hoping they will bring out an A6 700 or an A7 1000, whatever you'd like that to be. But at the moment, I don't think... For me, particularly, I'm only talking about from my opinion, but I would not be buying an A6 500 now if you were just getting in. I'd get the A7 III. Even though, yes, it is a little bit more expensive. Well, let's have a look. I'm just curious to know. I mean, it is dearer. It is much dearer, and that's the thing. So let me just come back here for a minute, and we'll go to B&H. And I know the A6 500 is going to be way over, but... let's have a look at what prices the A6 500 is in the US at the moment. I mean, it's easy, like I said, it's easy for me to say. Well, let's have a look at the Sony Alpha, obviously, if you're doing... Oh, that's what it was. Let me just go back a minute. The other video recorded that I was talking about before that I wasn't quite sure was that one, the DL10. That was the other one that I was considering over this... Zoom H1, and I decided to get the Zoom H1. It was the DR10L, yep. So let me go back to here and just bring this up. So at the moment, it's $1,998 US. So that's the Sony mirrorless camera at the moment. If you wanted to buy that, all right, it's $1,998. So let's now go to the Sony A6500 and see what that's at. So the Sony A6500 is $1,398. This is why I'm saying to you that I seriously would be now thinking, well, if I was in the marketplace to buy one of those two cameras, I'd be saving up the rest to get the A7 III. I wouldn't be buying the A6500 at the moment, not at that price range, and seeing that's been out a while. The features the A7 III has to offer are so much above what the A6500 has, so I certainly would be thinking about getting that. If you've already got it, it's a hard decision to make about whether I sell it because you're going to lose money. I'm not sure how easy they are to go and sell them now, because there does now seem to be quite a number of these in the marketplace that people are trying to get rid of. So you're going to have to make a decision. Let me know in the live chat. Are you thinking about selling your A6500 or A6300 and getting the A7 III? And if you are thinking about selling it, let us know in the live chat what sort of price you're thinking about asking for the A6300 or the A6500 to move over. It'd be an interesting discussion about what you think you could get. You know, list what you think reasonably you could get for that camera. So Fito Photography said, sold 5D3 and in the process of selling my 2 remaining 6Ds for the A7 III. Yep, I don't blame you, honestly. If I was shooting Canon, I would have had enough. I mean, I just watched the Photostore, is it Photostore TV, the Canadian company that's up there. I had a look at their review of the new Canon mirrorless this morning, actually, and they didn't give it a good review at all. The 50M or whatever it is. It didn't get a good review at all. Seriously, I think Canon have now left it too late. And now that you can use your Canon lenses so well on the Sony system with the MC11 adapter, you know, and now that Sigma are announced as well, I'll be seriously thinking about moving over as well. I mean, I moved over and it was still risky when I moved over from Nikon, and I have never looked back. So David said, I have the A7 III on order, but I can't sell any of my gear until the middle of April. Okay. Peter said, imaging, I did the same when the A6300 came out. Rob said, sold my XT2 and XE3 and Fuji lenses, ordered the A7 III, the 28 f2 and the 85 f1.8. Great combination, nice wide angle lens there. And the 85 fe 1.8 is a beautiful lens. That's the same as the Batis. It's a gorgeous lens for that price. Raphael said, is it better than the A9 and the A7R III? No, they're different cameras. I did a discussion on that, saying about which camera you should use. If you go back a few videos, Raphael, you'll see it. And I talked about where they would still being used. If I get the A7 III, that's going to be a backup to my A9. I will probably use the A7 III a bit, but the A9 is still going to have, I believe the A9 will still have a little bit better focusing. You've also got the 20 frames per second, remember? And you also have the 1/32,000th of a second shutter speed. And I use that all the time now. That for me is a game changer. I adore that setting, so I really would not like to lose that. The A7R III, clearly if you're shooting more landscape, if you're shooting more real estate, if you're shooting more high-end studio type work, you'd want the A7R III. If you want a camera that will do everything, the best camera out there at the moment is the A7 III. So if you're dealing with a genetic camera that can do video, that can do stills, that can do basically all of that type of stuff, the A7 III is the camera to get. Cody said, I just received a 12,000 loan and want to buy a Sony kit for weddings. I've previously bought the A6500 and the 85GM. I want the AR3 with the 16-35 and 2470 and 70-200 and a new iMac. Good idea. No, not for weddings, Cody. I'd buy the A7 III. Definitely. If you're dealing with weddings particularly, the A7 III is going to be a much better camera, I believe, for weddings than what the A7 III is. When you said weddings, like I said, that's what swung me definitely over to that sign for you. The 16-35, yes. 24-70, like I said, that's a good lens if you want an overall one. I don't use it though, but yeah, 70-200 is always a good lens to carry as well. I mean, if it was me personally buying lenses here, Cody, I'd be getting the 16-35, yes, because you need that wide angle. I'd get a 35 1.4, and then I'd get an 85 Batis or a 85 Sony lens, the 1.8 lens. That's what I'd be getting, and obviously your new iMac. But that is the holy trinity for weddings, the 16-35, 24-70, and 70-200. Yes, it's what I always used to have, and now, like I said, most of the time for weddings, I'm just shooting 35 and 85, and occasionally getting out the 70-200. But I may shoot differently to you, Cody, so there's nothing wrong with what you're saying there. The only thing I would swap is I would have the A7 III instead of the A7 III for that, what you're saying you shoot there. The Panda photographer said Canon isn't going to do well with the M50. There are reviews already complaining about the 4K crop. Yeah, and they showed that this morning. The Camera Store TV showed the crop and it was terrible. And the 4K footage looks soft as. It didn't look good at all. It's probably the worst footage I've seen that Jordan and that have shot for video. It looked terrible. Have a look at it. Not now, but after you've finished with me, guys. What else have we got? Raphael said, keep the Fuji. Peter said, that is the exact same plan. What else have we got? SnapClick said, I think you're going to buy the A7 III. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I probably will when I go in and have a look at it. It'll be interesting to see if I do. If I do go in and buy it, then I have to make a decision on whether I'll keep my GH5. I just have to make a decision about that. Yeah. The Panda photographer said, yes, that did for the Canon 6D Mark II. It wasn't that good. Yeah, you're talking about video and stuff. Wait for the A7S III. Well, like I said in the discussion, there's no yet real rumour when that's going to be released. So it just depends. If you really need a camera now, I'd get the A7 III. It's clearly a better camera than the A7S II. Watch Max Ura's video on that, and you'll see that that A7 III is clearly a better overall camera than what the A7S III is. If you really want to be shooting, like I said, in caves, in having to use ridiculous ISOs, the A7S II was still better, and the A7S III will be better. But how often do you have to shoot in that scenario? To be honest, I very rarely go over 3200 ISO because I add lighting. And that's the thing. That's where the A7S III will be great for me, or the A7 III would be. But it still doesn't have 4K 60p, so that's another thing you're going to have to think about if that's really important to you. Statkick said, yeah, for a video and review it for us. Yes, I will. Rob said, I don't do video. Isn't the S3 more video focused? Yes, definitely. Well, you're only looking at 12 megapixels or whatever that will be. So the A7S III is definitely more video centric. You can use it for stills, but it's just not as good as the still cameras. Long Island Hillbilly said the A7 III seems like a winner. Definitely. Like I said, that's going to be the best selling camera this year, definitely, by far, I would say. Mel said, I always suspected that even if it has an AA filter, it is weak. But to me, this is irrelevant for usage. Yeah, and it's, like I said, I've never worried about that. You know, honestly, it's like I put that video, watch my previous video where it says, stop being a pixel peeper and worry about the art. None of your clients is going to know that that has an AA filter on it, trust me. And everything that I've seen and looked at with that camera, there's nothing there that screams that that has an AA filter. Now remember, you may put those two cameras like the A7R and the A7 III side by side, and then you might say, yes, it looks a little bit better, you know. But seriously, you've got to get over that, guys, and you've got to look at a camera overall. I thank you so much. I'm just going to come and see who just did donate that to me. Long Island Hillbilly, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that. You've really got to get over this business of of pixel peeping, guys, because it's not helping your photography. And this is the thing that you have to understand, that it does not help your photography one little bit. Now, do I love gear? Yes. And I'm as big a gear hog as anyone else. But don't get me wrong, I do love new gear. But does it really affect the art side of it? No, it doesn't. But it helps with things like focus. It helps with being able to shoot in low light if you're in areas where it's really bad. The eye autofocus, as it improves, does help you also when you're doing run and gun and things like that. But when you're dealing with, say, something like an AA filter in sharpness, and pixel peepers are probably going to go in here and slam me, but get it, just go ahead. But your clients do not look at it side by side. Now remember, unless you're in this for a hobby and you are in it totally for yourself, I can understand. Because if you are a pixel peeper and all you're in it for is to look at it yourself and to say, gee, I've got to have the ultimate sharpness, therefore I'm not going to have an AA filter, that's fine. But if you're dealing with selling for clients, it's irrelevant. It does not matter. They're not going to care if there's an AA filter in the camera or not. And everything I've seen with that camera, the A7 III, it's not a problem. And remember, you come across other issues too, like if you're shooting a camera without the AA filter, you can potentially get problems with brides' dresses and veils because you get the moire that starts to appear. That's another issue that you have to consider. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant, but, you know, I just always want to go back to people about talking about art, you know. It's important for me particularly. What else have we got? I vote for president. I wouldn't make a president because I'm too politically incorrect. I'd be shocking as a that type of thing. What else? Raphael said the A7S III will be out soon. Well, we're not sure. That's the hard thing about it. If you need the gear now, I always say get it while it's available. Anyone pre-order the Loxia 25 2.4? No, I haven't, but I think that'd be a beautiful lens. Mel said, oh, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate that. Good to see you in here too. Mel said, you forgot that the A7S family is about video, not just low light. The A7 III might be as good now, but it is 4K 4-bit. It is 8-bit 4K and no extra tools for video, maybe not even 422. Yeah, look, Mel, I know what you're saying, but look, if you are dealing where you are definitely a full-time videographer and that's all you do, I can understand that statement that you're talking about. I can tell you from my perspective, though, that I basically am not even shooting with profiles anymore. I'm now just shooting basically with a standard profile. I'm just shooting it out there. There's less processing later on to get it right. That's why I haven't even been worried about picture profiles on the A9. Remember, I'm just talking about it from my perspective. I'm not even using NDs or anything like that now. I just want to get the job done as quickly as possible, and my clients love the work that I'm actually giving them. So yes, if you are dealing with that, I can understand what you're saying. Having said that, I've got the GH5, and that will shoot with ridiculous amounts of quality if you want to shoot it, but the file sizes are astronomical. Like I said, it's incredibly hard to deal with. You've also then got to do grading if you start to shoot in log profiles, and it becomes really, really hard. So yes, I can understand what you're saying. If you are solely into video completely and you want the ultimate quality, yes. If you want to buy a camera that will do stills and will do video really well, I would be recommending the A7 III. And like I said, have a look at Max's video and sort of look down that line of it. You know, look sort of down that area and see what you think. But I'm not saying the A7S is not going to be a great camera. It is, but I just don't think most of us need those features unless you are, like I say, a full-time videographer. What else have we got? Mel said, I expect the A7S III this year. Why? Because it needs to cover the GH5S and the A7 II. It's 3 years old and needs to be replaced. And it would be remiss to let the A7 III take over the cadets of the A7S. Yeah, and you're probably right, but there's still probably development that's going on in that camera. So you're not sure where that may come out. We don't even know that the A7S III is going to be released. It might be an A9S. We don't know what Sony are going to do in that space yet. Remember, everyone is just guessing at this point of view. Sony could blow this out of the ballpark and bring out an A9S. We don't know. So it's still going to be interesting to see which way they put that marketplace. Don't get me wrong, if an A7S III or an A9S came out and it was amazing, I'd still buy it for my business. I'm just saying, how long do you wait? Remember, you can always get into this cycle of waiting for the next best thing. And like I said, if you're in a business situation like me and you can get 3 or 4 months and you need it now, you would just go and buy the A7 III. If you're not in a hurry, if you don't mind waiting a few months, which could be till November, wait. But, you know, you've really got to make a decision on what you need right now and whether you can use it. And that's why I'm saying it's a tough decision about which way you go. And it is, you know, it's not an easy one to decide. Scott said, that's what Sony wants. Buy the A7 III now and then drool over the A7S III later, and then you buy that too. That's why it definitely, I don't think definitely won't be released in April, because they will want they'll want to sell enough A7 IIIs out before that happens, and then that could be released later on. And like I said, there's no guarantee it will be an A7S III. It might be an A9S. Mel said, let's not forget the A7S family is really about video and low light. I suspect the A7S III will wow us at 102,000 ISO and be usable up to 204,000. Yep, you're probably right. But like I said too, you've got to be careful here, because I am a believer no matter how high you can push the ISO, you would only want to do that in extreme circumstances, because remember, it does still become flat when you're dealing with just pushing the ISO up. It still will affect quality. The best thing you can do is have the lowest ISO you possibly can and then add lighting in. And if you're dealing with beautiful images, you do want to add light, and that's what you've got to consider about how far you do want to push the ISO. Mel said the A7 might be even a 16 megapixel. I think it definitely will pump it up, Mel. I agree with you. Raphael said no, 8 megapixel lets in more light. What else have we got? Most people can't afford the GM lenses. The Panda photographer said yes, they can't. That's true. Altric said the 105, it's a huge lens, but the bokeh will be crazy. I know, that's why I'd like to give it a go. For me personally, there's got to be a reason why I'd want to use that lens and lug that weight around. Like I said, I don't like the heavy stuff, but if it's something that I could just bring out, you know, occasionally and get an amazing look, it might be worthwhile to have. The Panda photographer said, selling my kidney for $10,000. Anyone need one to buy a new camera? Fantasy said, pre-order the A7 III like everyone. I think that camera is going to be crazy. I really do. Raphael said, make 28 to 135, better 2.8. That'd be pretty, pretty good. The price of the Tamron yet to be confirmed, as Chinese translates say a deposit. Oh, okay, so you read that and it says it's a little bit different, does it? Is Sigma going to make a 12 to 24 or 16 to 35? I'm sure they probably will. It's just a matter of time. Peter Kent said, I think Sony Alpha rumours was under fire for misleading about the price of the Tamron. Oh, okay, 2870. That ad said it was only a down payment and they would change the rest. Yeah, that's what they just said there, Peter. So, well, that's interesting. So that's not good if they did do that. I can't read Chinese, so I just took it as what it, you know, basically said. What else have we got? Yeah, the 18 to 135 to E-mount would be fantastic. That's a brilliant lens, and I know an awful lot of people that use that Sigma 18 to 35 on the GH5s, and they love it. That would be a great lens to bring over. Carlos said, I ordered the A7 III, but I had all my gear stolen. Oh no, so I don't have any lens at the moment. I'd love to get this Tamron, but when will it be released? Well, they're not saying yet, so it's hard to say. Anyone use a Samyang Rocky One 35 2.8? I've heard it's a good lens. I have the 35 1.4, Raphael said. What else have we got? Dennis said the 28 to 78.5 sounds like a good walk-around lens. Yes, if you like that focal length, it is. To be honest, I just like the 35mm for a walk-around lens. I just love that focal length for street photography, but that's me. If you do want that zoom, though, yeah, the 28-75 would be. Raphael said I have the A7R. Altrix here too now. David Mossman said, how many Sony lenses are built in China? Price increases are coming from the latest Trump tariffs. Yeah, you'd have to Google that, David. I'm not sure. But yeah, they may. That may be some of the thing that they might tax if you are in the US. Dreamer said, being a photo guy, this might get me to test and learn some video without spending on the full electric gimbal. Yeah, that's talking about that Fosicam. I know, for that price, you can't go wrong. Well, as long as it works. Wait till I review it. Creative Film said the DR10 is amazing. Yes, and I was looking at that too, as well as the, this one. I was tossing between the two of them. Why I ended up deciding to get this one, Michael was actually helping me sort of make a decision on this. It does have the attachments through here that I can use my zoom attachments that I've already got. So that was a big plus for me. Plus, the LCD screen is good. There is another thing too that I like about this. It records in MP4. The DL10 only records in WAV, and the file sizes can be massive. So I do like recording in MP4 because it is a hell of a lot smaller. But there are downsides to this. This doesn't do a backup track, so that is a downside to it, whereas that DR10 does do a backup track. So I'm hoping that Zoom, if they do watch this, I hope they do add that as firmware. It's just a decision I made, and I ended up buying those because I already had it. Dang, I missed while of freaking out because just obviously logged in. G&D Photography said Sony A7 III for me. Goodbye Canon, yeah, and that's happening to a lot of people. Creative Film said, just shot a new film entirely on the a6 500. Capable camera. It is. And like I said, I use mine all the time. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's just that the A7 III is going to be a better camera. The a6 500 is still a stellar camera, though. Altric said, having a Corona. Oh, good, join me. Have a cheers, Altric. Gerald said, sorry he's late. Well, you still got here, Gerald. Rob said, yep, sold the Fuji X-T2, X-C3, and Fuji lenses to get the A7 III. He's going to get the 28, the 85, 1.8e, 1.8 FE, which are great lenses, and we'll get that new Tamron zoom when it comes out for walk-around lens. Scott said, sold my NX1 to get the A7 III. Wow, so you're still using NX1. That camera was so ahead of its time. It's a pity Samsung got out of it, Scott, because that was such a good camera, and it's really a pity that it was stopped being developed. Gerald said, saving my a6 500 for video on gimbal use, and yeah, that's why I'll be keeping mine as well. It's also a great travel camera as well because it's so small. Creative Films, nope. Hanging on with mine, waiting for the A7S III. What else have we got? Gerald said, how are we going for time too? Yeah, I better stop soon. Gerald said, just going to buy the A7 III, not selling anything. Sold my A7 II last year to get the A7 III. Yeah, I sold 2 of my A7 IIs last year as well. What else have we got? Rob said, the Fuji Primes are all awesome. I loved even the F2 WR23 3550. One thing I'm disappointed in is the cheap 35, a 50mm Sony. That's why I went with the 28 F2. Yeah, because they got decent reviews. Well, you know what? If you're saying the cheap 35 f2.8, I don't mind that lens at all, Rob. You got to be careful sometimes doing reviews. Sometimes you're better off to hire the lens yourself and try it out and see how it is, because mine's really sharp and I'm really happy with that lens and I really actually like it. It's not like my 35 f1.4. I mean, I adore that lens. But, you know, and you can't go wrong with the 28 f2. Yeah, I mean, so many people talk about that. I've only used it in the shop. I've never actually used it, though, full on. Cody said, what's better for weddings, a second shooter or an assistant to hold lights and adjust groups? Well, I have both usually, Cody. It depends to how much they're charging for the wedding or how much I'm charging them. Sometimes I'll just have Kerry who assists me, and other times I'll have another person that holds lights as well as Kerry. I always have a second shooter with me all the time. That's so important. I would never do a wedding on my own because there's things that you can miss, and it has basically saved me a couple of times where something's happened and I've missed it. I had an issue recently where I was shooting the first kiss in a church, and some idiot walked in front of me who had a camera on the side, and I missed that shot. Now, luckily, Kerry from another angle got that shot. I would have missed that if I didn't have a second shooter, so I would never do a wedding without a second shooter, ever. But remember, I'm more high-ended. I'm charging $3,000 plus to do a wedding. Most of my weddings are over $3,000, so, you know, I can afford to hire a second shooter. If you're starting and you're only charging $1,000, well, you can't do that. So in that case, you know, you might have to shoot it on your own. With lights, I then, depending on the wedding, sometimes my second shooter, like Kerry, will hold the lights if it's only the two of us, and then I'll do shots that I need, and then other times she'll do the shooting. Other times I actually hire a third person to just hold the lights. So it just depends, but yeah, it's hard. But both is good if you can afford it and you're charging enough. What else have we got? Michael also gave a donation. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate that. The Panda photographer said, Pixel Peeps ruin the foundation in photography. I know, and like I said, guys, I know I can rant, but remember, I am here to help you as well. Now, I have a very successful business. I'm really doing quite well. I mean, honestly, I'm booked out for weddings nearly all of next year, and I've booked a number for the following 2020. I'm really doing well. I'm not boasting. I am, and I'm not going to lie to you. I am doing really well. All the shoots that you see are paid shoots for me. I'm not like most YouTubers that will hire models or even ask for free TFP shoots to do models. All the shoots that you see me do, 98% of those are paid model shoots. They've paid me to do the shoot, so I am doing really well. But I can tell you, they're not hiring me for the gear that I have at all. None of them ever asked. I've never had a bride ask me, what gear do you use? And to be honest, if she asked me that, I don't even think I'd work with her, because I have turned down weddings before, and I really don't think that I'd work with her. Because to me, what matters to me is the art. It's the image. And I sell my stuff on the actual image. I rarely advertise. You do it from word of mouth and sharing on social media. Now, they hire me for the look that I actually show. So they're hiring me for that type of work. Now, when I do wedding interviews, and I will film one of these one day to show you how I actually do this with couples, but when I do interview with them, I talk to them about the timeline that I need to give them the art that I require. Because remember, I don't want to be a point and burn photographer, because there's so many of them out there, and you're in this whole marketplace of competing with everyone else. And I tell the bride and groom that I want to give you art. That will mean that I'm going to be slower on the day. It will mean that I might take a little bit longer to get the shoot that I need. I'm not just going to go bang, 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 bang to get a shoot off. And I've had so many bride and grooms, because so many of these bride and grooms have been in other weddings as bridesmaids and groomsmen. And they always go to me, oh my God, David, you only took 1 or 2 shots. And they notice this sort of thing. And that's the difference. That's what you've got to try and get at. And like I said, I've been mentoring Ben, and I've told Ben the same thing. Ben was doing way too many shots in his, and he won't mind me saying this, Ben was doing way too many shots in his weddings, and he's starting to slow down now. You have to look at things methodically, guys. And the hardest part for a new photographer is to slow down. The really hard part for you is to say, breathe, and to slow down. And that will make the world of difference in your photography. You've got to think like an artist, because there's so many people can just get out there and go click, click. You've got to make your images stand out. Anyway, over with the rant. But I want you guys to succeed as much as I do. What else? Zek said, do you think the A7 III is good for astrophotography? Well, I can't really comment on that because I don't do it enough. I have done it a number of times, but I was happy with the results, but I'm not that good at it. So someone else may chime in here about whether they think that will be good. But I know there was problems with the A7 III. But yeah, it's just something that I very rarely do. So yeah, I can't really comment on that astrophotography. Long Island Hillbilly said, my A7 II has an AA filter, but you wouldn't know it. Yeah, and I think, like I said, don't get stuck on that stuff. It's pixel peepers again. I have a baby coming due May the 9th, so my daughter is going to be my model to start building. Fantastic. How good is that you can do that? I've stopped shooting, I shouldn't say shooting. I've stopped photographing babies completely, Rob. It's just not a marketplace that I want to be in. And this is where I believe in this art principle, I only now shoot what I love doing, which is weddings and model shoots and things like that. I'm really not doing baby shoots at all. Did I lose money by doing that? Yes, I did, but I hated doing it. So I've basically stopped doing it completely, and I'm not doing it anymore. I just pass them on to other photographers. I probably should hire someone and do it here, but then I just don't know if I want to deal with other people. If Sony released an A9R, would you buy it? No. No, I wouldn't dream. I don't need any higher megapixel files than what I'm dealing with now. I'm quite comfortable with just having my A7 II at this stage. I would probably, to be honest, I'd probably buy an an A9S version before I bought the A9R version, but that's just the way that I'm shooting. I'm really happy with that 24 megapixel file size, and I don't do landscape enough to justify having that high end. And to be honest, my A7 II is ample. When that goes, I will buy what's ever around that's equivalent to that camera, but I'm quite comfortable with just using that at the moment for that. The A7 III though does interest me. Someone's here from Texas. DFW is here. Rob said, I'm lining up a bunch of family and friends to do some family. That's great if you're trying to build up a portfolio as well. ZRX said, what Sony lenses do you recommend for just starting out? A couple of good primes. Honestly, you can't go wrong with a couple of good primes. A perfect example of that is, like the Sony A7 1.8. That's so cheap for what you're getting. I'd definitely be getting that. And then you can also get something like the Samyang 35 as well, which is a great couple of lenses if you're dealing. A nifty 50 is always perfect. Get a good nifty 50 is always a beautiful lens to start out with as well that you could probably get. Filmic said, if you look at some filmmakers' best work, such as Brandon Lai, they were shot with the RX10, RX10 II, and A6500 and AS7 years ago. All this tech hasn't helped their skill level or storytelling. And you're right, it's just talent. The whole lot really is all based on talent. The gear it does help. And like I said, the A9 is the best camera I've ever used. That has definitely helped me in weddings with things like focus and stuff like that. But does it change my art? No, not one little bit. The art side of it is the same when I was shooting the Nikon D3S. It's exactly the same. But like I said, I still love buying new gear and I'll still keep doing it. Mel said 3rd or 4th quarter of 2018 is the best time to release the A7S III. I think you're probably right that's probably when it's going to be announced. It'll be interesting to see, though, when it is actually released and what the price range is. What else have we got? We won't be on much longer, guys, because I know we've been on here for a hell of a long time. I'm going to get in trouble again. People saying I stay on here too long. David Morrison said, I remember a viewer saying the f2.8, f2 85 1.8 were made in China, but on YouTube, so take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, you never know. Oh, Peter said, I just got the Zoom F1 II. I love it with my H5 mics. Yeah, and that's the beauty of that I can use it with all those other mics that I've got. That's why I went to get the F1 instead of that other one. Peter said too, I usually have a second shooter, and that also helps with my light setup. Briar said, wow, 3,000 AUS for a wedding sounds cheap. Yeah, I'm middle market. Now, that's my middle package, though. The dearer packages, which are often taken, are nearly 7,000. So it just depends on which package that they want to buy. That 3,000 package is definitely down the middle of the road. I also have a package which is cheaper than that, which is 2,000. So my cheapest package is 2,200. And that's just me giving images which are lightly edited on a disc. They're sized to a certain size because if they want to do prints, they've got to come back through me. Not many people take that package though, the 2.2. The next one is 3,400. So it's a little bit over 3. The next one is 3,400. That includes things like a few retouched images and a wedding album. And the one above that is around 6,500. And with add-ons, that ends up about 7. But I also offer video as well. Remember, I'm shooting that at the same time. So probably my average wedding now is around about 4 to 4.5. Well, no, it'd be 4.5. 4,700 would be probably about my average wedding price now. Cody said, thank you for your input. I enjoy your work. Thank you so much, mate. What else have we got? I need to hear that rant. It's just important, guys. Art will get you a lot further than what the gear will. Pixel peeping. Snapclick said, awesome advice on slowing down and shooting less. That is one big difference. Now, I'm on average shooting around about 800 to 900-ish per wedding. That's with 2 shooters. So that's roughly where I'm going per wedding. Whereas often other people that I know are getting 3,000-4,000 images. It's too many, and they're all the same, and that's the problem. You know, you shouldn't be shooting that way. Slow down, reduce the amount of work. Remember, I came from the film days where you'd only be giving a few images because it was film. That's how you've got to think. Try and think like you're shooting film. Slow down and get the image right in camera. And then you can move on to the next location, and you're not going bang, 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 flashes going off 30,000 times, and it'll make a big difference to how you work. Trust me, learn to breathe and learn to slow down. Remember too, your bride and groom aren't going to worry about that because they'll think you're in control. I've never had a bride and groom say to me, oh, we're taking a bit long, because in the end, I'm not taking any longer. It's just that I'm not going bang, 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 taking off 30 shots. I'm taking 2. And that's how you've got to think about when you're doing that type of thing. Hillbilly, Long Island Hillbilly said, I wonder what kind of waiting list the clients for the angry photographer has. The happy photographer will make a comeback. I'm just waiting on the right moment, actually. Dreamer, I am not a pro. I do this as an enthusiast. I've done a few paid gigs, portraits in 2 to 3 hours. I only click 20 to 30 clicks. Perfect. And that is perfect. And you're only giving 5 to 10 good images, and that's great. Peter said, how many photos do you usually get for a wedding? Well, I just explained that. I'm usually doing about 800 to 900 images, and then I'll basically nut them down to the amount that I'm giving them, and I'll often only give 600 to 700. I keep trying to keep it under 1,500, but I had a green second shooter that gave me 3,000, I know. And that's the problem, you know. Like, it's not an issue of also saying slow down, but you want to cut your wedding editing time down, because if you're dealing with 3,000 to 4,000 images, how much time are you adding on in your wedding editing? And that's another thing that you've got to consider. I really don't think shoot and gun is the way to go. And I really think that's the difference between a really professional photographer and one that's beginning. Beginner photographers will always shoot way more than they need. And that's the first thing I tell them is slow down, breathe. Bassie said, just sold my 5D III and the 50 1.2 and will buy the Sony A7 III. Would you please recommend a Sony 50? Well, to be honest, look, the 50 Sony lens is amazing. The 1.4. I honestly love the 55 1.8. I adore that lens. And like I said, I think that's the fastest focusing lens if you're dealing with low light than any other lens. So if it was me personally, I would buy the 55 1.8. But others in here may say go for the 50. But if it was me, I'd buy the 55 1.8. But that's me. I love it. It's tiny and it's just fantastic. Dreamer said, the A9R, it is something I need. I was referring as a dream camera where I can stop gas and retire. The problem is though, Dreamer, everyone says that. I say that all the time. This is the last camera I'll ever get. It never works because the next camera comes out and you want it. There's no end to the gas, and that's a problem for us all. Gerald said, yep, Mr. Happy Photographer. All right, guys. I'm going to go. I've got clients actually coming this afternoon to view their wedding images, so I better get that ready. So leave any questions down below. Obviously, if you have any of those, please give me a thumbs up too if you can. I really appreciate that because it does get this video around. So please, if you can, give me a thumbs up. Obviously, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Don't forget to join the photography and videography school on Facebook. I'll leave that in the link down below now. And any questions, leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Thanks so much, guys, for the donations too. That was Michael and Long Island Hillbilly. So thank you so much for that, guys. Really appreciate that. And I'll catch you all in the next video. So, g'day from down under. I didn't even finish the beer. I'm going to finish that right now. Catch you all, guys. See you soon. Bye.